Go.
Okay, so our first step with the Quartz Renew will be the snakeskin revealer, and this will be a very quick process. A little bit of this goes a long way. I will move across this repair for about maybe 30 seconds at the most to bring the snakeskin back and blend it in with the surface. So this is the one step where you will need to be very careful about the time you spend. So as it says on the label, do in short intervals, wipe it clean and check to see where you are, just to avoid having a snakeskin that's more prominent in your repair area than it is on the factory finish. It's better to ease into that and to blend in than to go too far. In that case, you'll have to go back to diamond polishing and start over again, basically. So very careful with this product, the snakeskin revealer. So I'm going to apply a modest amount of material. With this step, I'll be using the wool pad. It's a 7-inch wool pad, and low RPMs, primarily just to avoid the splattering. If you're working in a home, especially, you want to protect yourself, protect the cabinets and the flooring, so forth, because all of the steps will have a tendency to splatter a little bit. So I'm going to run at all the way down on this polisher, which is about 700 RPM. Okay, so we've finished the first step, the snakeskin revealer, and like I mentioned earlier, this is really not intended to be something that would improve the sheen. It's really just to blend in the texture. So we're really just looking at the consistency of the snakeskin, and as you can see here, it's definitely still have some haziness there. But as far as the snakeskin texture goes, we're blending in quite well. And here's our black piece. Okay, so we've now blended in our texture. Now we want to focus on blending in the sheen with the factory finish. And the next two steps will help us achieve that. The second step now is the resin polish, and this goes with the assumption that any hazing that would be present from micro scratching of the quartz would have to be taken out with the diamonds. That's why the diamond polishing is so important. This really just focuses on the resin and also does multiple other repairs, which we will show you in a minute, how it can work on marble, it can work on different types of issues. It really comes down to your assessment as to if the damage is only to the resin. This will do the job for you. Okay, so now we're definitely we're going to go after the hazing that we saw in the last shot, and this should get us most of the way there. So I'm going to use a liberal amount of this. When you first get the foam pads, this is a green cutting pad and a denser pad. It holds the material and will stay in the pad if you keep these in bags after you use them. The material will stay in there and stay wet, stay saturated, and it will require less use of the polish in the future. But when you first get a pad, the dry pad will soak up a lot of material, so initially you will use a lot more just because it's absorbing into the pad. Okay, so I'm going to use a liberal amount here, and unlike the first step, I can go about the same feed rate as I would with my diamond polishing, which is a slow feed rate, and I can stay on this for as long as I want. It will only increase the sheen level. Okay, so we finished at the second step, the resin polish, and it's removed a lot of our hazing. And just to look at our black piece here, as you kind of glance across the piece in the black, the polishing that I've been doing is primarily to this point, and you can see we do have some, a little bit of subtle difference there, but most of my repair is actually slightly darker than the factory finish, which is over here. See the background is slightly hazier than I have right in here. So that's a good example of how the third step comes into play, and we'll, as I call it, a blender. It just blends in the finish, and we'll even that out. And here's our other piece. Is definitely polished out well, and we're, I would say we're 95% there at this point. Now we're ready for our final step, the final polish. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a blending product. We'll just address that very subtle hazing and blend out the total repair with the factory finish. Okay. Similar to the second step, the resin polish, I'm going to use a liberal amount. We want the product to do the work, and really don't want it to get dry. If any of these products end up getting dry during your polishing, you want to stop and apply more to make sure that the product's doing the work and not the pad creating friction. So the pad that goes with the final step is a white finishing pad. Again, it's a foam pad, and we can take as much time as we want polishing on this step as well. Okay, so we finished our final polish phase, and blending in our repair with the factory finish, and this is our final product.